16, I was in high school. I was a sophomore at Richmond Hill High School, and I was a truant. I was playing hooky every day. I was running around in the streets, and along the line, I got in trouble at school, and I was suspended. I was suspended indefinitely my sophomore year. So my mother went up to school and she signed me out on her own without discussing it with my father. She signed me out. Why she did that, I don't know, but I was happy she did it, and she signed me out. And my father literally stopped talking to me. He would come home and he would look at me and he would go in the bedroom and close the door. I mean, because he didn't really want me in the street. But he didn't really know how to go about reprimanding me because he had no father. His father died when he was 6. And later on, he used to tell me the reason why he didn't reprimand us or anything is because he knows what it was not to have a father. So he didn't know how to correct me or anything like that. So he just stopped talking to me. So it went on for about a month. And then finally, I couldn't take it anymore. So I called up my Uncle Frank, who was my father's older brother. And my father sort of like respected him because there was a big age difference. My Uncle Frank was almost 20 years older than my father because my father was the youngest child out of 16. And my Uncle Frank was the second child out of 16. So there was a big age gap. And my Uncle Frank used to always kid my father and go, remember when you were a kid, I used to kick you in the ass? And my father, yeah, well, you can't kick me in the ass no more. But so I called up my uncle and I said, listen, you got to come to the house. You don't want to talk to me. I got suspended in school. My mother signed me out. I need to go to work. You don't want to talk to me. You got to come over to the house and talk to him. So my Uncle Frank, who was really loved me. I mean, I was probably his favorite nephew and he liked me. He just always liked me. And he came right over and we had a sit down. Basically, that was my first sit down. And we were sitting down in my kitchen. I remember like it was yesterday. I mean, you're talking 1969. So we were sitting down in my kitchen and my Uncle Frank looked at my father and goes, listen, Andy, he goes, what are you going to do? He goes, this kid's just like us. He ain't going to go to school. Because my Uncle Frank was legitimate. He worked for the transit in a big train yard in Brooklyn, but he had a big Shylock business, a big sports business. He was a street guy. He did a bid when he was younger, but he wasn't like mobbed up except outside of, being with my father, which was his brother. So anyway, he told my father, listen, what are you going to do with this kid? He said, he's like us. What are you going to do? So my father looked at me and he says, well, you want to go to work? And I said, yeah. So he says to me, all right, he goes, I'll get you in the Bricklayers Union. Now, back then, the Bricklayers Union, I don't even know if it still exists anymore because nobody uses brick. But back then in the Bricklayers Union, you had to start out as a heart carrier. And what a heart carrier was it was a basin that was shaped like a heart, and it was connected to a stick with a patch for your shoulder. And you would walk around, and the bricklayers would take the cement out of the heart and lay brick, and you would walk up and down the construction site, and they used to call it carrying the heart. And that's how you had to start out on construction. So my father said, and I looked at my father, he goes, I don't want to work in no bricklayers union. I'm not going to carry no heart around with cement in it. So my father looked at me and he went, well, what do you want to do? So I looked at him and I said, I want to work for you. Now I knew by then he was a wise guy. I knew the deal, I knew what was going on. I didn't know everything and I didn't know really, I knew enough. I said, I want to work for you. And he didn't say nothing, he just looked at me. And I remember he looked at me and then he leaned over and he took his finger and he tapped on the table and he went like this with his finger. And he went, if you want to work for me, remember one thing. And then he went on to say, he goes, going to jail is all part of the fucking job. Just like that, he told me. And I looked at him, now here I am, I'm 16, and the way I was raised and what I've seen, like it was fine. You know what I mean? Like I accepted the fact that going to jail is part of it. And I sat back and I go, it's fine. I said, I want to work for you. And that was it. The next day, he took me to this club. This guy had a club. The guy's name was Philly the Pimp. That was his nickname. I don't know why they called him that. He wasn't a pimp, but they called him Philly the Pimp. He had a club on Merrick Road in Long Island. And I went in there with him. My father introduced me to him and they had a blackjack game. And that was my first illegal job. I worked in the blackjack game and I got paid $60 a night to work in the blackjack game. And then my father also had a poker game in East New York that was run by this kid, Anthony Carrazza, who passed away now, was a good friend of mine, who's Nicky Carrazza and Jojo Carrazza, brother, who was a captain in the consigliere of the Gambino family. And he gave me, and he made us partners, and he gave us the poker game. So that was my first initiation into the mob at 16.